Israel delivered from the Midianites. The men of Ephraim said to Gideon, "Why did you not tell us what you were doing when you went to war with Midian?" They reprimanded him sharply. So he said to them, "What could I do in comparison with what you now do? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? The Lord has delivered into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb. And what could I do in comparison with what you do?" Their spirit toward him became calm when he spoke this word. When Gideon came to the river Jordan, he and the 300 men with him crossed over hungry, but still pursuing. Then he said to the men of Sukkah, "Please give bread to feed this army of men that follow me, for they are exhausted, and I am pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian." And the leaders of Sukkah said, "Is the hand of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand, that we should give bread to your army?" So Gideon said, "Therefore when the Lord has delivered Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I will then tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with the briar bush." From there he went up to Penuel, requesting the same and in the same way. The men of Penuel answered him as the men of Sukkah previously answered. And Gideon said to the men of Penuel, "When I return in peace, I will tear down this tower." Now Zebah and Zalmunna were at Karkor with their armies, about 15,000, all that remained of the entire army of foreigners. They that fell were 120,000 men who drew the sword. Then Gideon traveled the road eastward of Nobah and Jogbehah, to where they dwelt in tents. Here he smote the army, and the camp was surrendering. Zebah and Zalmunna fled, and he pursued them, capturing the 2 kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna. The last of the army was caught by surprise. And Gideon the son of Joash returned from the battle, down from the battle line of Ares. And he took prisoner a young man of the men of Sukkah to interrogate him, and he wrote down for Gideon the names of the leaders of Sukkah and of their elders, 77 men. Then Gideon came to the rulers of Sukkah and said, "Look, here are Zebah and Zalmunna, about whom you reproached me, saying, Is the hand of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand that we should give bread to your army?" And he seized the elders of the city with the thorns of the wilderness and with the sharp thorns, and with them he flailed the men of the city. Then he tore down the tower of Penuel and killed the men of the city. And he said to Zebah and Zalmunna, "Where are the men you killed at Tabor?" And they said, "As you are, so they were in the appearance of a king's son." Then Gideon said, "They were my brothers and the sons of my mother. As the Lord lives, if you had kept them alive, I would not kill you." And he said to Jether his firstborn, "Rise, and kill them." But the youth would not draw his sword, for he was afraid, for he was yet very young. So Zebah and Zalmunna said, "You rise up and face us, for your strength is that of a man." So Gideon arose and killed Zebah and Zalmunna, and took the crescent ornaments from their camels' necks. Then the men of Israel said to Gideon, "Rule over us, both you and your son, for you have delivered us from the hand of Midian." But Gideon said to them, "I will not rule over you, nor shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you." Then Gideon said to them, "I would like to make a request of you, that each man would give me an earring from his plunder." For they had gold earrings, because they were Ishmaelites. So they said, "We will gladly give them." And he spread out his garment, and each man threw down an earring from his plunder. Now the weight of the gold earrings which he requested was 1,500 pieces of gold, besides the crescent ornaments, pendants, garments, and purple robes worn by the kings of Midian, and the chains around the necks of their camels. Then Gideon made it into an ephod and made a memorial of it in his city of Ephrathah. Hereafter, Israel indulged in all types of sinful acts because of it. And to Gideon and to his house, it became a thorn. Thus Midian was reduced in stature before the sons of Israel. And they lifted their heads no more. The country remained at peace for 40 years in the days of Gideon. Then Jerubbaal the son of Joash went and dwelled in his own house. Notes from the previous page. 7:15 Gideon worshipped before the promise had been fulfilled, and prepared himself to act in obedience to the Lord without first needing a sign from him. 7:24-25 Earlier in Judges, God's army was satisfied with partial victories, 1:27-34, and paid the consequences. Here and in the next chapter, Gideon makes sure the conquest is complete, a sure lesson for those who seek victory over sin. 8:1-3 The men of Ephraim had been excluded from the battle. Gideon showed the wisdom of not arguing in the face of their anger. Instead he encouraged them tactfully, based on their own accomplishments. Rom 12:3, 6. 8:4-9 The men of Sukkah, v5, and Penuel, v8, refused to give bread to Gideon's men, questioning his victory over Midian. Their refusal to help God's servant was costly. See MT 25:41, 46. 8:10 The name Zebo means slaughter, sacrifice, a name given to create a sense of great fear. But here, it foreshadows his destiny. Before Gideon, the servant of the Lord, Zeba, became the one slaughtered. 8:13-17 The men of Sukkah, v5, and Penuel, v8, refused to give bread to Gideon's men, questioning his victory over Midian. Their refusal to help God's servant was costly. See MT 25:41, 46. 8:14 Gideon would not kill haphazardly. The covenant was broken and due punishment was to be exacted, but he killed only those directly involved. 8:16 There can be consequences if one chooses to break a covenant. Here the promised punishment is fulfilled. 8:23 Gideon refused their offer, though later his son Abimelech would try to keep his father's house in power. Death of Gideon. And Gideon begot 70 sons of his own, for he had many wives. And his concubine, who was in Shechem, also bore him a son, whom he called Abimelech. Now Gideon the son of Joash died in his city, and was buried in the tomb of Joash his father, in Ephrathah of the Abizrites. So it was, as soon as Gideon was dead, the sons of Israel again played the harlot with the Baals, and made a covenant for themselves with Baal that he would be their God. Thus the sons of Israel choose to no longer remember the Lord their God, he who had delivered them from the hand of all their enemies on every side, nor did they show mercy to the house of Jerubbaal, that is, Gideon, in accordance with all the good he accomplished for Israel. Abimelech seeks to be king. Abimelech son of Jerubbaal went to Shechem, to his mother's brothers, and he spoke to them and to everyone in the family of his mother's father, saying, I pray you to ask in the hearing of all the men of Shechem, which is better for you, for all 70 of the sons of Jerubbaal to reign over you, or for one to reign over you. Remember, I am of your own bone and flesh. And his mother's brothers spoke all these words concerning him in the hearing of all the men of Shechem, and their heart was inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said, "He is our brother." They gave him 70 shekels of silver from the house of Baal-berith. And Abimelech hired for himself vain and cowardly men, and they followed him. Then he went into his father's house at Ephrathah and killed his brothers, the 70 sons of Jerubbaal, 70 men upon one stone. But Jotham the youngest son of Jerubbaal was left, for he hid himself. Jotham makes his plea. All the men of Shechem and all the house of Beth Millo gathered, and they went ahead, and made Abimelech king by the oak of sedition at Shechem. It was reported to Jotham, and he went and stood on top of Mount Gerizim and lifted his voice and wept, and said to them, "Hear me, you men of Shechem, and God will hear you. One day, the trees once went forth to anoint a king over them. And they said to the olive tree, Reign over us. But the olive tree said to them, Should I cease giving my richness, with which men will glorify God, and go to be placed over the trees? Then the trees said to the fig tree, You come and reign over us. But the fig tree said to them, Should I cease my sweetness and my good fruit, and go to be placed over the trees? Then the trees said to the vine, You come and reign over us. But the vine said to them, Should I cease my wine, which cheers both God and men, and go to be placed over the trees? Then all the trees said to the bramble, You come and reign over us. And the bramble said to the trees, If in truth you anoint me as king over you, then come and take shelter in my shade, but if not, may fire come from me and devour the cedars of Lebanon. And now, if you have acted in truth and integrity, and have made Abimelech king, and if you have dealt well with Jerubbaal and with his house, and if you have done to him according to the reward of his hand, as my father fought in war for you, and put his life in jeopardy, and delivered you out of the hand of Midian, but you have risen up against my father's house today, and killed his 70 sons upon one stone, and made Abimelech, the son of his bondwoman, king over the men of Shechem, because he is your brother. If then you have acted in truth and faithfully with Jerubbaal and with his house this day, then rejoice in Abimelech, and let him rejoice over you as well. But if not, let fire come from Abimelech, and devour the men of Shechem and the house of Beth Millo, and let fire come from the men of Shechem and from the house of Beth Millo, and devour Abimelech. And Jotham fled, and ran away. He went as far as Beer and dwelt there out of the way of his brother Abimelech. Abimelech in decline. After Abimelech had reigned over Israel 3 years, God sent a wicked spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. And the men of Shechem rejected the house of Abimelech, to bring the injustice done to the 70 sons of Jerubbaal, and to lay their blood upon Abimelech their brother, who killed them, and on the men of Shechem, who strengthened his hands to slay his brothers. And the men of Shechem set men in ambush against Abimelech on the mountain tops. They robbed everyone who passed by them on the way, so it would be reported to King Abimelech. Now Gaal the son of Ebed came with his brothers, and they passed by Shechem, and the men of Shechem trusted him. And they went out into the fields and gathered their grapes, and trod them and made merry. And they went into the house of their God, and ate and drank, and cursed Abimelech. Then Gaal the son of Ebed said, Who is Abimelech, and who is this son of Shechem that we should serve him? Is he not the son of Jerubbaal, and is not Zebul his steward, his servant with the son of Hamor the father of Shechem? And why should we serve him? And if it were so that this people were under my hand, then I would remove Abimelech. Indeed, I would say to him, multiply the strength of your army and come out. When Zebul, the ruler of the city, heard the words of Gaal the son of Jobal, his anger was aroused. And in secret he sent messengers to Abimelech, saying, listen carefully. Gaal the son of Jobal and his brothers have come to Shechem, and be warned, in the area around the city they stir up trouble against you. Now get up by night, you and the people with you, and lie in wait in the field. And early in the morning, at the same time the sun rises, move your battle line toward the city, and behold, he and the people with him will come out against you. And you shall do to him as much as is in your power. So Abimelech and all the people with him rose by night, and, with 4 companies, they lay in wait against Shechem. Gaal the son of Jobal went out and stood at the door of the gate of the city, and Abimelech and the people with him rose from the place of ambush. And when Gaal the son of Jobal saw the people, he said to Zebul, look, a people are coming down from the top of the mountain. But Zebul said to him, you see the shadows of the mountains as being men. Gaal still continued to speak and said, see, people are coming down toward the sea from the center of the land, and another company is coming from the way of Elonmenim. Then Zebul said to him, where indeed is your mouth now, for you said, who is Abimelech, that we should serve him? Are not these the people whom you despised? Go out, if you will, and fight with him now. So Gaal went out before the men of Shechem and warred with Abimelech. But Abimelech chased him, and Gaal fled before him, and many fell wounded, even up to the door of the gate. Then Abimelech went into Arumah, and Zebul drove out Gaal and his brothers, so they could not dwell in Shechem. On the next day the people went out into the field and reported to Abimelech. So he took the people, divided them into 3 companies, and placed them in ambush in the field. He looked, and there were the people coming out of the city, and he rose against them and attacked them. Then Abimelech and the leaders with him charged forward and stood at the door of the city gate, and the other 2 companies charged forward against all those in the fields and smote them. Abimelech fought against the city all that day and took the city, killing the people in it. And he demolished the city and sowed it with salt. When all the men of the towers of Shechem heard that, they came to the meeting at Bethelberith. And it was reported to Abimelech that all the men of the towers of Shechem were gathered together. Then Abimelech along with all his people went up to Mount Hermon. And Abimelech took the axes in his hand and cut down a branch from a tree, and took it and laid it on his shoulders. And he said to the people with him, quickly, do what you have seen me do. So each and every man cut down a branch and followed after Abimelech, putting the branches against the stronghold and setting them on fire, burning down the stronghold as well. And all the men of the tower of Shechem died, about 1,000 men and women. Abimelech then left from Bethelberith and encamped against Thebez and overpowered it. But there was a strong tower in the middle of the city, and there all the men and women of the city fled, and they locked themselves in and went up on the roof of the tower. And Abimelech drew near the tower and besieged it, and Abimelech drew near the door of the tower to burn it with fire. But a certain woman dropped a piece of a millstone upon the head of Abimelech and broke his skull. He quickly cried out to the young man, his armor bearer, and said to him, "Draw my sword and kill me, lest men say of me, a woman killed him." So his young man thrust him through, and he died. And when the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, they departed, every man to his place. Thus God repaid the wickedness that Abimelech brought against his father by killing his 70 brothers. And God returned all the wickedness of the men of Shechem on their own heads, and the curse of Jotham the son of Jerubbaal came on them. Notes from the previous page. 827 Gideon's idea of making an ephod, a priestly vestment, and a memorial in his hometown, commemorating his victory, became a thorn. The lesson: it is unwise for God's people to unduly celebrate a victory over enemies. 9:1 Jerubbaal is Gideon, see note at 632. 9:1-5 Soon after Gideon died, the crafty Abimelech, his son by a concubine, with help from the men of Shechem, murdered 70 of his father's legitimate heirs. Only Jotham escaped. 9:7 Mount Gerizim, previously used for the offering of blessings, DT 1129, is now used by Jotham to pronounce a parable of warning and a curse to the people. 9:8 These words speak to the mockery of kingship not anointed by God. 9:25 These robberies kept the king from collecting taxes from traveling merchants. 9:26-57 The punishment of which Jotham warned fell on Abimelech, v. 56. Those who live apart from the guidance of God face ultimate destruction. 9:37 Elanmanim can be translated Terebinth tree of the diviners. Tola and Jair, judges of Israel. After Abimelech, Tola the son of Puah arose to save Israel, the son of his father's brother, a man of Issachar, and he dwelt in Shamir on Mount Ephraim. He judged Israel 23 years, and he died and was buried in Shamir. After him arose Jair of Gilead, and he judged Israel 22 years. He had 32 sons who rode on 32 colts, and they had 32 cities, which are called the villages of Jair to this day in the land of Gilead. And Jair died and was buried in Ramnon. Israel again afflicted. Then the sons of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord, serving Baals, and the Ashtoreths, the gods of Arad, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the sons of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines, and they forsook the Lord and did not serve him. And the Lord was enraged with anger against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of the Philistines and into the hands of the sons of Ammon. And they afflicted and oppressed the sons of Israel for a time of 18 years, all the children of Israel beyond the Jordan in the land of the Amorites, in Gilead. Moreover, the sons of Ammon crossed the Jordan to war against Judah and Benjamin, with Ephraim. The children of Israel suffered severely. And the sons of Israel cried out to the Lord, saying, "We have sinned against you, because we have forsaken God and have served the Baals." So the Lord said to the sons of Israel, "Did I not deliver you from the Egyptians and from the Amorites and from the sons of Ammon and from the Philistines, from the Sidonians and Amalekites and Ammonites who oppressed you when you cried out to me, and I delivered you from their hand? Yet you have forsaken me and served other gods. Therefore I will deliver you no more. Go and cry out to the gods you have chosen for yourselves, let them deliver you in the time of your distress." And the sons of Israel said to the Lord, "We have sinned. Do to us whatever is good in your eyes, only deliver us this day. So they put away the foreign gods from among them and served the Lord alone. And his soul was grieved by the misery of Israel. Then the sons of Ammon went up and encamped in Gilead. And the sons of Israel assembled together and encamped at the lookout. And each of the leaders of Gilead said to his neighbor, who is the man who will begin the fight against the sons of Ammon? He shall indeed be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. Jephthah takes command. Now Jephthah the Gileadite was being exalted in power, but he was the son of a harlot, who bore Jephthah to Gilead. Gilead's wife bore sons, and when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, You shall have no inheritance in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman. Then Jephthah fled before his brothers and dwelt in the land of Tob, and vain men banded together with Jephthah, and they went out with him. And it came to be that the sons of Ammon made war against Israel, and the elders of Gilead went to get Jephthah from the land of Tob. Then they said to Jephthah, Come and be our commander so that we may fight against the sons of Ammon. So Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, Did you not hate me, and expel me from my father's house, and exile me from you? Why have you come to me now when you are in need? And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, That is why we have turned again to you now, that you may go with us and fight against the sons of Ammon, and be our head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. So Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, If you take me back home to fight against the sons of Ammon, and the Lord delivers them to me, I shall indeed be your head. And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, The Lord will be a witness between us, if we do not act according to your word. Then Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and commander over them, and Jephthah spoke all his words before the Lord in Mizpah. Now Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the sons of Ammon, saying, What is there between me and you, that you have come to fight against me in my land? And the king of the sons of Ammon said to the messengers of Jephthah, It is because Israel took away my land when it came up out of Egypt, from the Arnon as far as the Jabbok, and to the Jordan. Now therefore, restore those lands in peace, and I will go. So Jephthah again sent messengers to the king of the sons of Ammon and said to him, Thus says Jephthah, Israel did not take away the land of Moab, nor the land of the sons of Ammon, for when they came up from Egypt, Israel walked through the desert as far as the Sea of Siph and came to Kadesh. Then Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, Please let me pass through your land. But the king of Edom would not listen. And they sent to the king of Moab, but he would not consent. So Israel remained in Kadesh. And they went along through the desert and circled the land of Edom and the land of Moab, having come from the rising of the sun to the land of Moab, and encamped beyond the Arnon. But they did not cross the borders of Moab, for the Arnon was the border of Moab. Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon king of the Amorites, king of Heshbon, and Israel said to him, Please let us pass through your land into our place. But Sihon did not trust Israel to pass through his territory. So Sihon gathered all his people together, encamped in Hahaz, and fought against Israel. And the Lord God of Israel delivered Sihon and all his people into the hand of Israel, and they smote him. Thus Israel inherited all the land of the Amorites, who inhabited that country, from the Arnon to the Jabbok and from the desert to the Jordan. And now that the Lord God of Israel has removed the Amorites from before his people, Israel, should you then inherit it? Will you not possess whatever Chemosh your God gives you to inherit? And we will inherit everything the Lord our God removes before us. And now, are you any better than Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he ever strive against Israel? Did he ever fight against them? While they dwelt in Heshbon and in her borders, in the land of Aroer and in her borders, and in all the cities along the banks of the river Jordan, for 300 years, why did you not deliver them within that time? And I have not sinned against you, but you wronged me by fighting against me. May the Lord render judgment today between the sons of Israel and the sons of Ammon. However, the king of the sons of Ammon did not heed the words Jephthah sent him. Notes from the previous page. 946 Beth-el-Berith means the house of Berith, a temple of a local deity, see also v50. 10:1-7 Tola saved, judged, Israel, and Jair helped sustain the 45 years of peace Israel enjoyed. But Israel fell into idolatry and evil again, and the Lord, for their sake, delivered them into the hands of the Philistines, later to be invaded by the Ammonites, v. 7. The false gods Israel served included Ashtoreth of Sidon, 3 kilograms 11:5, 33, Baal Peor and Chemosh of Moab, NM 2129, 25:3, 3 kilograms 11:7, 33, Molech, Milcom, of Ammon. LV 1821, 3 kilograms 11:5, 7, 33, and Dagon and Beelzebub, gods of the Philistines, 1623, 1 kilogram. 5:2, 7, 4 kilograms 1:2, 3. Molech was particularly known as a god requiring human sacrifice, LV 1821, 20:2, 5, 2 kilograms 2310, J 3235. 10:11-16 A powerful account of God extending not judgment but mercy to sinners. His soul was grieved, CGN 6:6, MK 1434. 11:1-3 Not being the son of Gilead's wife or even a concubine, Jephthah is thrown out of his home as the son of another woman in violation of the law regarding the fatherless, DT 10:18, 14:29, 16:11, 24:17. 11:10 Mizpah was the place where Jacob and Laban made a covenant, GN 31:44, 49. This shows the elders of Gilead took seriously Jephthah's appointment to lead them. 11:11-27 A debate between Jephthah's messengers and the sons of Ammon over a 300-year-old land dispute, v. 25. It is not resolved, v. 27, and a war will result.